YouTube, Awesome Writer here. Welcome to my video where I talk about everything I loved about Cosmic Fury. Obviously, that's a bit of an exaggeration as I didn't go episode by episode and pick out every little thing I loved in each episode. It's kind of more broad strokes, few specific things, but it would be way too long of a video if I did like each individual episode. So again, just broad strokes. So it's just meant to be more of a positive video. If you want more of my, constructive thoughts and more of a review format, I did a series review which will be linked here probably multiple times in multiple ways. I probably will bring up a few review-esque things saying like, I wish we had more time for this, but it was still cool, stuff like that. But let's go ahead and get started. First of all, I do really like the scale feeling of this series, like the epic scale of the opening fight. Even though we didn't get to see all the other Rangers fighting, I like that they at least brought it up. I'm really hoping against hope that there's somehow a comic or something someday where we can see what the other Rangers were doing. But I like that they acknowledged that, like, hey, other Rangers would be helping, and even though we were kind of in this small corner, it gave this scale to it that I really liked. I also do like the idea of the villains. Like, the comedy aspect didn't always land for me, but I always love a good original thing, original villains. But the idea of these sort of corporate villains kind of taking advantage of, like, war profiteering, effectively, kind of brought up, like, Last Jedi vibes in a very simple way. But it was an interesting idea, and I kind of even liked the twist involved with them. I know a lot of people were upset about Lord Zen being nerfed or whatever, but it was unexpected and an interesting, unique idea for PR right there at the end. I also really liked getting to see Billy and Mick at this battle, like they just ran into him, and I like the idea that Billy knew Mick and stuff like that. And I really want to quickly bring up, a lot of people were like confused thinking that Once and Always took place after this because of this and because of like him mentioning the stuff at Zordon at the end. For me, I felt it was very clear because they keyed up Billy going to space at the end of Once and Always, and I know that Billy was supposed to be in space, but like we didn't know he was repowered and stuff, so... And the Zordon thing, I was like, I just thought that meant he was like, oh, so like I was right to think that. This is just more evidence, or finally a lead. So I don't know. I can see why people think that, but people are pushing that too hard. It's been disproven that this takes place after Once and Always. Stop. I also just like seeing more of Mick. It was nice to see Kelson, and it would have been nice if we could have gotten a Boom cameo or something. But it was cool to have him there for like the last season, and him suiting up as the Red Ranger made that aspect of Ninja Steel kind of cool, and seeing him like piloting the Zords and just being around. I would have even liked to have seen him been more a part of the regular group, but it was cool to just see him more in the series. I really love like the way they handled the Zords. Tying them to Zordnia and the Shogun Zords was a really cool bit of connective tissue. I like that they worked differently, like kind of like I expected, kind of like auxiliaries where you can just pilot other Zords and you can remotely pilot them. It was kind of like this cool rotating system. Not to mention, I really just did like everything about them piloting Zords from a different Sentai and having like a new costume power transfer. Definitely gave me like very early Saban era vibes, which is something I always liked about that era, both when I was younger and when I got older and knew about Sentai, because it was just this unique thing about PR is they just keep grafting different elements onto it, and the mmpr Rangers piloting all these different things and having these different stories about losing their powers and getting them back. It just, for the last season, and especially being a dino-based one, it was really cool to have that feel again, and I really liked that. It was kind of like this mini tribute to it. And I like that Billy even addressed in a line, one of my favorite little lines was him saying, and then I became a wolf ninja, and then him even saying, keeping the dino theme felt right, which felt like in a way why they kept it. Both, I mean, I know that they said they did it for toys, and they did like 3 toys. Maybe in the future they did more. Like, as of this recording, though, there's 3 toys. Let me know if you're from the future and there's more toys. But I also think the reason they chose Ryu Soldier in the first place and the reason they kept it was because they kind of liked the idea of starting and ending on dinos, so I thought that was just kind of cool. Speaking of little lines I liked, I also love that Ion addressed that technically him and Zato are older Rangers. Like, I guess Billy's probably had more time as a Ranger, but I did think that was something that was interesting when we knew Billy would be coming back. And also, like, when they were watching recordings of the mmpr Rangers and Dino Fury, like, as if they were like, dude, you're the veteran Ranger here, guys. I thought that was just cool they brought it up, but, like, the fact that Ion brought it up in a look at that young man go was one of my favorite fun lines. Talking about the suits and designs and stuff, they're still not my favorite, but they've grown on me a lot. They definitely looked a lot better in action. I've always really liked the weapons, in particular Amelia's hammer, Javi's guitar, which I think is cool because it ties into his character. I always really liked the way the Ankylo helmet looked in red with like the little gold accent. It just worked. And it's weird that I guess they got pushback for like Zato's suit. Like, they wanted to do white, which they thought would be offensive. I think they're way overthinking that. And I don't know why they vetoed titanium, but I'm actually kind of glad we got the champagne color. It's a bit weird, but also it's a first. I don't think Sentai's done that yet. It wound up looking pretty cool, and titanium kind of just would have been more gold and silver noise. So yeah, I ended up kind of liking that. I honestly did like Amelia's journey as Red. It made sense to me when we found out, in the sense that she was kind of one of the main characters in Dino Fury, and some people said it felt out of character. Not that she didn't fit the role, but I didn't but that she felt out of character. And I didn't feel that. I more so saw it as a situation where someone is sort of thrust into a role of responsibility, you know, because Ollie was gone, Zato was gone. She kind of just all of a sudden became that person, and I felt that felt natural as much as it could in a rushed period of time, and I think it worked well. And I liked little touches like her jacket slowly getting darker, or at least she wore the dark pink one and then red. I thought that was cool, but it worked for me. Also, I loved Evil Ollie. Probably my least favorite character in Dino Fury became one of my favorite characters this season. The actor did a great job of playing it. I guess it was a long-term thing because in part the actor wasn't available, but it wound up working out, made the season really unique, had a really cool original suit. I really liked that original suit, one of my favorite of the original suits. And I loved like his weird almost mentor relationship with Zed. I thought that was cool and unexpected, and it didn't pay off in the villain sense, but it wound up paying off at the end of the series, which I thought was pretty neat. I really did like having Billy back. I wish he could have done more, and I felt he got shoved off to the side at the very end, but it was just cool to have him spotlighted in general for this anniversary year as, you know, a character that didn't get the spotlight often, and we primarily focused on like Jason and Tommy in terms of returns and stuff like that. So it was really cool to see him back fighting with the others. Piloting another Wolf Zord was cool. You know, just the idea of the way they pilot the different Zords and have other Rangers from other teams piloting the Zords, and getting to have a nice few little mentor-like moments with Javi and with Amelia. Again, I wish there was more, but it was still cool to have him there. Speaking of cool to have there, again, very minimal, wish there could have been a bit more, but it was neat to have Heckle back. One of my favorite parts of Dino Charge, my god, there's too many of the Dino series. It's easy because I'm talking about Dino Fury. Well, sort of. I'm talking about Cosmic Fury. Anyway, it was cool to have him there. Even though it was the wrong helmet or whatever, I feel like people that don't know about Sentai are blessed because they don't even know about that. But it was kind of a cool payoff of something that, like, I know that there was multiple behind the scenes back and forth of why it didn't happen, and just since it was the last season, it was kind of a cool payoff to be like, hey, it's the last season, you finally get to see this, and it was neat. I also really liked Fern this season. I liked her in Dino Fury, but I liked her especially more in Cosmic Fury. I just loved her whole energy and enthusiasm, almost coming off sometimes like just a fan of Rangers and being excited to do Ranger stuff. And I thought her intro as Orange Ranger felt really natural and right. Again, much like with Amelia's, as natural and right as it could with like 10 episodes. Again, I think 10 episodes can be plenty for something, but it was clear to me in this series that they thought about they were going to have 20. But I think for condensing it, they did a good job with it. I still wish there was a little bit more different about her helmet because everyone else's helmets are different. But I think they did the best they could. It's grown on me a bit, and the fact that it's so long I think was super cool. I liked Javi's arm story. That was kind of an unexpectedly dark thing for a Power Rangers series, especially the kids show. It also added a cool aesthetic to both his suits. I almost think it looked cooler on the Dino Fury suit. But regardless, that was a cool beat, and again, something clearly they would want to spend more time on in a 20-episode series, but I liked the way it was handled, and it gave him a bit more spotlight, as I felt he was probably the character that was the most in the background in the original Dino Fury series, so I really liked that. I also liked that even though he had to learn to use it, there was never a moment where it was a liability. I was honestly worried you were going to have that cliche of him going in the field too early and was going to get someone hurt by using the arm, and I liked that that didn't end up happening. Speaking of, like, having time for things, I liked the way the stuff was done with, like, the ship. It was still convenient that there was plans to make it a ship, but I liked that it wasn't just like, it's been a ship the whole time. It was kind of cool because it was, like, more realistic, and it gave them a goal to work towards. I also like that the Dino Fury supporting cast wasn't forgotten. You know, I think Jane and Jayborg, I honestly like them. Their bits were sometimes over the top, it didn't work, but I legit like the actors and think they did a good job, and I think they were able to tone them down, but still keep their spirit and not forget about them. I also really liked that Tarek had a more significant role, even than I was worried about him having, because I did want to see him suit up or maybe get an exclusive Ranger suit or something. I guess they had to send the Geysorg suit back, but I'm glad he got a prominent role, because my worry was even if he didn't get a Ranger suit or whatever, that he was just going to cameo, and I'm glad he had a significant role because he was one of my favorite characters in Dino Fury. I also did appreciate, even though it was a little clunky and rushed, that they attempted to set up SPD. I mentioned in my review, it seemed a bit confusing because it makes it sound like aliens moved to Earth for the first time now, even though the SPD flashback set up that they lived there then, but I'm going to choose to headcanon it as like it's always been a sanctuary city. But I do really appreciate that they're like, we got to address this because the fan, not because like the fans deserve it, but like we've been bringing it up forever, that it's become like a meme, and I appreciate that they thought about that and addressed it. I know people were mixed on the way everything with Zed was handled, and apparently they couldn't have a big battle because they didn't want to damage the suit or something. But I really liked a lot of the ideas surrounding the endgame, including the twist and Zed becoming a Zed Master. It was one of the coolest original costumes. Like, the idea of him turning into the Q-Ranger villain could have been kind of neat because it lines up and it could have been one of those cool PR adaptation things. But I'm glad we went this route because I always prefer something original, especially when it looks as cool as that. So, again, clearly something that I feel would have been more fleshed out if they had more time, but I think the ideas were there, and I liked the ideas, and I liked the suit. Also, I didn't know where to fit this in, because it's kind of like not plot related, but I thought that the stunts overall were really well done, you know, talking about like not needing Sentai or whatever. I always think that the PR stunts are well done. Actually, I find it, just as a random tangent, interestingly, for a long period of time, I always found the Power Ranger stunts to be more interesting to watch than the Sentai footage, but I think there was a certain point where Sentai stunts got just as good. This is just my perception, that the Sentai stunts got just as good, but I think they had really good fight choreography that I enjoyed watching, and also the score. The score was one of my favorite things about Dino Fury. Like, I would have been happy to have anything that wasn't just an mmpr ripoff, but just the fact that not only is it something different, but it's something memorable. It reminds me of the Disney era, where it gives it a distinct identity that has background tracks that I actually look forward to hearing. Like, every time I knew they were about to morph, I was excited because I loved the morph track, similar to how every time, you know, Ninja Storm's about to do the Zords, I'm ready for that dun 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 dun. Still the best track, I don't care. Ninja Storm headbanging music is better than all the Wasserman music, at least in my heart. Also, one little detail before I get to sort of the wrap-up, I really loved the whole, the episode where they dressed up as the band. I loved the H-A-T-E, the Emperor of Evil song. That whole little episode felt like kind of a filler slice-of-lifey episode for a spacefaring series, and I like that they had a couple episodes like that that made it feel like it was less of a rush, and you were more living in that dynamic, and it was just a lot of fun. I loved the little songs we had in that. It was a fun episode, and it ties into the fact that I like the song at the end, which I wanted to bring up. But I really like that they did that. They had those little moments that made it feel more like a fleshed out series. And I also liked the underdog feel, like they're this on-the-run vigilante team they had, like from the Rulers of the Galaxy. But to wrap it up, speaking of the songs, I thought it was nice having a song about May the Power Protect You. I felt like, in general, that kind of summed up how I felt about what they did with the series. It wasn't perfect. Like, I know that there are criticisms I have, but I also think if you read anything about it or see anything about it, there was a lot of behind-the-scenes, like, problems and you know, obstacles they had, so I really do think they did the best they could, and I think they really wanted to try to deliver something as special as they could, and I think they picked kind of a meaningful final scene. If, like, this is the final scene of this continuity, it was nice, and they left the door open a little bit. I think people were reading too much into it, that they're specifically setting things up. I think it's more like leaving the door open and also giving that feel. Like, I don't remember who was in the comments that I liked the feel that it was a nice ending, but it made you feel like that universe will still out there, you'd still be out there living, which is nice. And I just really, just in general, liked the final scene. And I know some people were mad, but I do legit find it funny that I think the final line of the whole series could have been, "May the power protect you," and it ended up being "Cool, cool, coolio." I mean, come on, that's funny. But yeah, overall, Cosmic Fury was not perfect, but I had a blast watching it. Let me know what your favorite things are in the comments as always. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you get notifications for my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.